Somebody went digging through a privacy file in the latest iPhone beta and found a feature Apple has not announced. It is designed to prove that a photo is real, in a world where you genuinely cannot tell anymore. And the way it proves it is the part I want to talk about. Before anything else, let me be clear about what this is. Apple has announced nothing, and this is code found inside a beta. The name in the file is Apple Reference Image. It is switched off in that beta, and it does nothing yet, so everything about how it ships is still guesswork. But the problem it is aimed at is very real, and it is getting worse every month. We have reached the point where you cannot look at a photograph and know whether a camera made it. That breaks something people have relied on for 150 years. So the plan appears to be a new mode inside the camera app. You choose to shoot in reference mode, and the phone writes extra proof into the file. So far, this sounds like a small, sensible feature. Then, you look at what happens when somebody actually wants to check that a photo is genuine. There is a badge on the image. Tapping that badge does not check anything on your phone. It sends the photo away to Apple to be judged. And it does not just send the picture. It sends the raw image, the signatures of the sensor, the time frame of the capture, and the unique hardware identifiers of that specific camera. Sit with that third one for a second, because it is the interesting one. A unique hardware identifier for your camera sensor is, for practical purposes, a serial number for your phone attached to every photo you ask it to verify. Apple's servers then decide whether that camera really took that photo, give the image its own identity number, and hand an authenticated copy back to you. So the shape of it is this. Apple is not giving your phone the ability to prove something. It is making itself the referee that everybody has to ask. Now, the obvious question is why Apple is building its own system at all when the rest of the camera industry already agreed on one. Because there is a standard, it has been shipping for years, and this is not it. It is called C2PA, and it writes a signed record of where an image came from directly into the file. Leica, Sony, and Nikon all ship it. Google adopted it too, on the Pixel 10. So the industry has broadly landed on one way of doing this, and Apple is going somewhere else, which means a photo proved by an iPhone and a photo proved by a Leica would carry two different kinds of proof, and nothing would automatically understand both. And here's where I have to argue against myself, because the case for Apple doing this is stronger than I expected when I started reading. The open standard has a real weakness. The proof lives in the file's metadata, and metadata is easy to lose. Screenshot it, save it again, or put it through most social platforms, and the credential is simply gone. What you are left with is a picture that can no longer prove anything. Checking the hardware itself is a genuinely harder thing to fake, and that is the argument for Apple's version. It is also worth saying that the servers doing this are private cloud compute, which is the part of Apple's setup built, so that Apple itself cannot keep or read what you send. That is real engineering rather than a marketing line, and it is the same system Apple already uses when its AI needs more power than the phone has. So both things are true at once, which is usually where the interesting part is. Apple's approach is probably harder to defeat, and it also puts one company in charge of deciding what counts as a real photograph. And you opt into that per photo. It is off by default, nothing happens to the pictures you already have, and you never have to touch reference mode. The thing I will actually be watching is whether Apple lets anything outside its own apps read that proof, because that single decision is the difference between a standard and a moat. Because proving what is real is about to be one of the most valuable jobs on the internet, and whoever owns that check owns something much bigger than a camera feature. None of this is announced, so treat it as a look at what Apple is thinking rather than a product. But the direction is clear enough. The industry picked an open way to prove a photograph is real, and Apple is quietly building a private one that runs through its own servers. When it ships, the question to ask is not whether it works. It is who else is allowed to check. I'm Dex.